always, as every morning should be, today I'm going to do a little reading from A Course in Miracles. I've been a student of the Course in Miracles for a long time. Use what you can. It's kind of a direct, non-dual, philosophical new thought form. That's a lot of words in one sentence. But let's talk about relationships and the holy relationship. When you meet anyone, remember it is a holy encounter. As you see him, you will see yourself. As you treat him, you will treat yourself. As you think of him, you will think of yourself. Never forget this, for in him you will find yourself or lose yourself. So as earlier on, the philosopher Nisargadatta or even Ramana Maharshi would say, as pure non-dualists, they say that there is no other. And what you do to the perception or the projection of you and another is what you're doing to yourself. And I know that's a little confusing to some because we live in this place that we see things and we see someone else in front of us. Yeah, that person is not real. But it's you as well. It's a part of you. It's a reflection. And so we must love and learn to love completely in the extension and the creation that thing made. That thing created you out of love. It extended, right? And so we talk about extension. And when we get into these fearful places, it's what we call projection. We are projecting our fears, our guilt, our shame of the separation that never really happened. Yeah, all that is a bit confusing to those that don't understand the philosophical nature of non-dualism in a yogic context. But I do want to read a little bit more. Heaven, according to the Course, is neither a condition nor a place, but rather the awareness of perfect oneness. Since the Father and the Son are one, then to love one is to love the other. The love of God is not outside us. Just like the line in the song from Les Miserables that says to love another person is to see the face of God. That face is the innocence and love behind the masks we all wear, and seeing that face, touching it and loving it out ourselves and in others is the experience of God. It is our divine humanness. It is the high that we all seek. In every relationship, in every moment, we teach each other love or fear. To teach is to demonstrate. And as we demonstrate love towards others, we learn that we are lovable and we learn how to love more deeply. As we demonstrate fear or negativity, we learn self-condemnation and we learn to feel more frightened of life. We will always learn what we have chosen to teach. Ideas leave not their source, says the Course, which is why we are always a part of God and why our ideas are always a part of us. I choose to bless other people, and I will always end up feeling more blessed. If I project guilt onto another person, I will always end up feeling more guilty. Relationships exist to hasten our walk to God. He's in charge of our perceptions, our encounters. A Course in Miracles says that everyone we meet will either be our crucifier or our savior, depending on who we choose them to be. Focusing on their guilt drives the nails of self-loathing more deeply into our own skin, and focusing on their innocence sets us free. Since no thoughts are neutral, every relationship takes us deeper into heaven or deeper into hell. You know, the Course in Miracles is quite interesting, and that it's talking to us about ourselves and how we condemn ourselves for our own thought processes. even on a subconscious level. And every single relationship we have is a healing aspect. And our relationships with our parents, and our relationships with our siblings, our relationship with our loved ones, our spouse, our children, the relationships with your animals, the relationships with your neighbors, your students. And remember that you are all teachers. And what are you choosing to teach today? Is it fear or is it love? Is it extension or is it projection? And if you're one of my students, I talk a lot about that. And on this Valentine's Day, really well yourself up with gratitude, and for knowing that in all of our relationships, these encounters hasten our way to the thing. And sometimes we forget that because we get caught up in woe is me, or guilt or shame, or these emotions that cloud our judgment. And then we have to find a discerning eye to see where we're going again. On this Valentine's Day, I wish you love and peace and joy and happiness within all your relationships, even the most difficult ones. Today we promised you a yin practice. Today's practice is a heart opener, apropos to today's day. The heart is the energy or the element of air. It is green in a chakral color sense. When it does get closed, we feel suffocated, or we feel like we can't take a breath. When your heart is broken, it feels like you can't breathe. It feels like you're being crushed. So today I invite you to open up your heart and fill it as much as you can. So yogis, that being said, if you need props, I'm sitting on a cushion. I have bolsters, blankets, I have blocks, straps, everything down there. If you need any of those things, please grab it and meet me in the middle of your mat as we do a little bit of pranayama to start our practice. So take a moment here, yogis, and settle. Make sure that you're sitting on your sits bones in any way that you can or you need to. And then lift up out of your sits bones without bringing any tension into the shoulders. So we want to lift up the muscles. Those are the pupil coccygeal area of the bottom of the pelvic floor. And we're gently lifting it up, right? It's like a little lift of those muscle groups because we're contracting them upward. And then we're going to squeeze the belly towards the midline. And all of this acts as an inner alignment. In yoga, we call them bandhas. They're subtle energy locks. And they're not used forcefully. You could hurt yourself if you would do that forcefully. You don't use them all day long. These are subtle energy locks so that the prana stays where it needs to stay. So yogis, take a moment here and try to bring awareness to these two areas, lifting up in the pelvic floor, squeezing the belly towards the midline. And then find your breath as you inhale and exhale through the nose, while maintaining these two locks subtly, not aggressively. Relax your shoulders, but keep the pelvic floor and the belly protected and engaged subtly. Noticing the inhales and exhales through the nose, cultivating that Ujjayi breath. During this yin practice, and I'd say 99% of all hatha practices, we are doing this Ujjayi breath. We are using it throughout the practice. It's a guide. Lets us know when we've gone too far or that we haven't challenged ourselves enough. Place your hands on your heart center, yogis, and set an intention for your day. Wonderful, yogis. So take a moment. If you're on a bolster, remove it if you need it. We're going to come into the center of our mats, yogis. And for today's practice, I do want to start with a little dynamic warm-up before we get into the practice. So come onto all fours, yogis, and just drop the right elbow down and look to the left. I'm finding a little bit of axial rotation. And then come back to the center. Dropping your left elbow down, look to the right. And then come onto all fours, yogis. Let the belly drop gently and lift the head. Finding a little bit of extension of the spine. And then tucking the chin into the chest gently and finding some flexion of the spine. And let's do that again, yogis. Let the belly drop, lift the head, inhale. And so right here in this position, just notice what you're bringing to the mat this morning. If it's the first thing you're doing in the morning, just notice how gently we have to move into the mobility. Yeah, our spine is a little swollen in the morning, basically. And so you don't want to jar it. And just let the spine get into its groove, right? And then sit back towards your heels, yogis, and bend the elbows down gently. Here's a little bit of flexion. We're going to press the hands into the ground as we press our forehead towards our thumbs. Let the belly drop, lift the head, and come into that cow pose. And then let the spine become neutral as you press your hips back towards your heels, bending the elbows down to the ground, finding flexion again. So here we have a little dynamism, right, in the movement. So press your hands into the ground. Let your head lead your chest down towards the ground and lift your eye gaze coming into cow. And then pressing your hips back, finding a nice neutral spine, bending the elbows so that you can find your flexion forehead to the ground. We're going to do that one more time because it feels really good. And then lengthen yourself forward. Excuse me, I was trying to find my words. Let the belly drop, lift the eye gaze, and then not tucking the chin, just neutralize the spine as I press myself back towards my heels, and then bend the elbows and let the forehead touch the ground. Take a moment here in child's pose. Remind yourself of your intentions. So take another breath here, yogis, as you reach your arms forward, sitting back towards the heels. Lifting your eye gaze and then lifting the hips, reaching your arms forward and placing the chin on the mat for Anahata or melting heart. If this is not a possible pose for you, put your forehead on the ground and bring your hands towards your shoulders. Taking the deepest breaths you can. Taking 3 more breaths. And then gently, yogis, bringing your hands in and then sitting back towards your heels, bringing your hands on top of each other, forehead to the ground, and finding a child's pose. Notice the difference between both of these poses. And let yourself surrender into your hands, into the mat. One more breath. Good, yogis. Then extend your arms forward again, but this time just bring your left arm underneath your right. Try to, if you need to open up your knees a little bit more, I do. And then try to roll a little bit on that left shoulder. Bring your right arm up, right? And if you can, grab a hold of the left thigh. Two more breaths. And then gently release the bind. And bring your arms forward and straighten out your torso so your shoulders are facing the front of your mat. Bend the elbows and just take a moment. Notice how the shoulders feel, how the top of the chest feels. And then bringing your right arm through, lifting the left arm, grab a hold of the right thigh if it's possible for you. We're going to take 3 more breaths right here. And then gently release the bind. And then just let your forehead touch the ground again. Bend the elbows. Maybe this time place your forehead on top of your hands. And if you can, open up your knees a little bit wider. And then slide your hands through the space and put your left ear on the mat for a moment. Slide both hands through. I like to grab my feet. But if you can't, then that's fine. Or just grab your hands. 'And then gently put your right ear on the mat. And notice if that made a big difference or maybe no difference at all. Two more breaths. And then gently, yogis, chin on the mat and start to release your hands and bring them up and out. And then sit up, shake your hands out of your arms, elbows, and then come onto all fours and then gently bringing your knees towards each other. Sit back onto your heels for a moment and find Seiza. Just take a breath. So yogis, we felt that in the chest, in the back, in the hips. And again, I would like you to find your open position. So sit in between your heels if it's possible for you. If not, yogis, use a block. Sit on a block, sit on a bolster, or put a bolster behind you, right? So we're going to come into saddle. Remember, your knees can open up as much as you need to, but do not let them lift up off of the ground. Now, I'm not going to come into a full recline. If you'd like to do that at home, then you have that in your practice, then go ahead. But I'm going to stay basically a little bit on a diagonal or an incline. I'm not going to lie back all the way, but I'm going to place my hands on my feet and lift my chest. If this is not possible for you, again, use a bolster behind you, yogis, or just keep yourself high on your hands. Flip your hands around and just keep your arms a little bit more extended, right? Two more breaths. Fill your heart with joy. Fill that space with brightness and light and air. And then pressing your hands into the ground. And then allow yourself to hoist yourself up gently, yogis, and take a moment. So yogis, gently, because our knees are in this position, I'd like you to just lift yourself up, bring those tibias back into their normal rotation or neutral alignment, and come onto all fours. And then press the floor away from you, finding that flexion. And then finding that neutral spine again. Good, yogis. Sitting on to your, I'm gonna face you. Sitting onto your sits bones. Extend the legs forward and then extend the right leg over the left. Yeah. And then place your left elbow on the ground. And then start to reach this right leg a little bit more to the left, right? So we have this cat pulling its tail. As we bend the left knee or the bottom leg, you're going to grab a hold of it. Again, if you have it in your practice, you can start to lower yourself down on the ground. If not, stay on the elbow. You can bend this right leg and grab a hold of the knee and pull it a little bit further up towards the armpit as you kick the left foot into your right hand. Either or, yogis. Open up the chest. So some of us are bringing the right shoulder down to the ground. Some of us are not. But I do want you to lift in the chest and take a breath. Take one more deep breath here. And if you have a hold of your right knee, release it gently. Just start to simultaneously bring both knees on top of each other. So my right shoulder is still on the ground. And then I need to stack my shoulders on top of each other. So I'm rolling onto my left side. I'm going to take a moment here. Then I gently press myself up and I'm going to lengthen my spine. So I'm still in this side saddle position. My knees are separated. And then I'm going to look to the right. And there's my rebound as I look forward. And then bring knees together. Windshield wiper your legs a bit. And then sit on the sits bones, extend your legs, and let's do the other side. So we're going to take that left leg over, right? Again, you could stay here. You could start to put that right elbow onto the ground. You could stay here. This is a great pose, right? You could stay here by bending the right knee, and then kicking. You could stay here. This is the pose. Or if you'd like, you could start to recline yourself down. If you still can recline, but you can't put this left shoulder on the ground, great. But if you can start to inch that shoulder down, lifting the chest up, great. If you can bend the left knee, great. All of it's great, any amount. These are twists, yogis, so please be mindful of your spine. You just have to do what you can do. Any amount is wonderful. And this is also opening and lifting the chest, opening up the heart. Yogis, take one more deep breath here. And then release the bind. Your shoulders, my chest is still facing the ceiling. Bringing both knees simultaneously together. And then roll onto the right shoulder. And just find a neutral spine. Then press yourself up, yogis. Your knees will separate a bit. And then just be in the side saddle position. Lengthen the spine. Prop yourself up with that right hand. Relax your left arm. And then look to the left. Then coming back towards the midline, yogis. Good. And then come onto your sits bones and do your little windshield wiper. Good. Good, yogis. Take a breath. So we're still facing the front of your mat. And we're going to lower ourselves back down onto the ground. Just take a breath here, feeling your spine into the floor. Pressing your lower spine into the mat. And then releasing that. One more time. And then releasing that. So yogis, we're going to extend the legs long. So I'm going to end with a big heart opener. So we're not going to end on the ground. I mean, we're going to come up from this and then end on the ground. So don't get too comfortable down here is what I'm trying to say. So we're going to lift our arms up over our head. We're going to extend the legs behind you. And we're going to reach our arms to the right and let the legs go to the right as well. Coming into Banana Asana, you can cross your legs at the ankles if you like. So this is a nice lateral extension. Don't let your left shoulder come up. And then gently release that back to the midline. So if your leg was crossed, uncross it and bring everything back to the midline. And then bend your elbows slightly and find a nice neutrality in the spine. And notice that when your elbows are bent, you could feel a little bit more of the expansion underneath the armpits, maybe across the top of the chest or the shoulders, maybe underneath the shoulders. Extending the arms over the head, extend the legs. And let's go to the left, bringing arms and legs to the left, crossing the ankles if you want. And then gently release that. Coming back into the center, bending the elbows and gently, and just take 2 breaths here. Reclaim that neutrality. Yogis, we're going to bend the knees and place the feet on the ground. I'm going to grab a block. If you have a book or a block, please grab it. We're going to come into a half supported bridge. So we place the block underneath the sacrum. And just take a moment. And breathe. One more deep breath like this. Yogis, you can stay here if you'd like. If you want to start to extend the legs, do that. Finding a little extension in that lumbar spine, in the legs, right? And the hip. And then place your arms over your head and grab the pointy parts of your elbows. Take the deepest breaths you can and fill that heart. Gently releasing the elbows, bending the knees, placing the feet on the ground. Press your feet into the earth, heels dig into the ground. Lift your hips up and then remove the block and lower yourself down onto the mat. Let your knees drop to the left or to the right and press yourself up. Take a moment here. And then find yourself facing the front of your mat on a kneeling position. Tucking your toes underneath you for this one. Placing your hands on your lower spine. Lengthen the spine. Lift up out of your waist. Press your hips forward. Inhale, let the head drop. And grab a hold of your heels and pull up towards the sky. Two more breaths. And then gently let your heels go. Place your hands back on your lower spine. Lengthen the spine, pressing your hips forward. Place the tops of your feet on the ground. Root to rise. And then sit back onto your heels. Take a breath here in this nice long spine. And then gently take your block and place it underneath your forehead and come into a child's pose, supported. One more breath. Then gently come up, yogis. Press yourself up. And then sit back onto your sits bones, extending your legs towards the front of your mat. And then lowering yourself down onto your spine gently with mindfulness. Feeling your spine onto the floor. Breathe. Opening at your feet, the distance of your mat. Letting your knees drop to the left. And then come back to the center. Let your knees drop to the right. And then come back to the center. Bring both knees into your chest. Grab a hold of the pointy parts of your elbows. Extending the left leg, keeping the right knee into your chest. And pull that right knee towards the right shoulder and open it up a little bit. Flexing the right ankle, grabbing a hold of the outside of the right foot, coming into half a happy baby. And then gently let the knee bend again, or the heel drop down towards the glute, pulling that knee towards the armpit or the shoulder, and then release it just a teeny bit so it's about level of your hip, and then cross it over to the left, finding a reclined twist. Bringing your right knee back into your chest. And then release the leg down. Take a moment. Bringing the left knee into the chest and pull. Open it out a little bit to the left and feel that external rotation happening in the hip. Flexing the left foot and grabbing the outside of the left foot. Then picking the sole of the foot up towards the ceiling and bend that left knee down towards your armpit. Relax the right side of the body. Then gently bringing that leg back in. Let that knee flex again. Dropping the left heel. Pull and then release it a little so it's about hip level, right? Then cross it over to the right and finding a nice reclined twist of your choice. Yogi's coming back in towards the midline. And breathe. Bringing both knees into the chest. Making little circles with your knees. And drop the feet down. We're going to come into a Supta Baddha Konasana. I'm going to use a bolster. So I'm going to roll up and get my bolster. Yogis, you don't have to use a bolster, but you can. So you want to have all your props handy. So if you're using a bolster, yogis, you're going to sit on right by the bolster, behind, right in front of it, excuse me, feet, soles of the feet are together. Now you don't need a bolster for this. You can use it. It just elevates your torso a little bit higher. So we could just relax into this back bend instead of having to be thinking about that lift all the time. Here we are just in it. So yogis, you could use pillows, you could use a sofa cushion, you could use blocks underneath your back, whatever you'd like, or you could just lay on the floor. Soles of the feet together, knees apart. Lift your chest if you want, grab the pointy parts of your elbows over your head. We're going to take 3 deep breaths here. If your arms are in the bind, just gently release them and place them on your hips or your legs. Let your elbows touch the ground. And gently let the feet come onto the mat one at a time, yogis, bringing your knees towards the midline. Let your knees knock together and let your feet come out. And just prepare yourself here for your Shavasana. Inhale and exhale. If you don't like to be on the bolster, yogis, come off the bolster and come into your Shavasana. Breathe. Just let yourself go and remind yourself of the intentions that you set this morning. And filling your heart up, filling your spaces up. And just breathe. Yogis, you could stay in the Shavasana for as long as you need to. But if you decide to stay in it, when you do wake up, make sure that you wake up mindfully and with intention. And if you're going to wake up with me, yogi, start to wiggle your fingers and your toes and bring your knees into your chest. And let yourself fall to the right or to the left. And then eventually find a seat. Good, yogis. And take a moment, bringing your hands to heart center. Yogis, extend this love to yourself and to others on this quite symbolic day of doing that. May you find your peace and your joy, and may you extend love to everyone. Satnam and Namaste.